Good morning, everyone. I'm also the chair of domestic capability at the AAAA, and I sit on the Sovereign Procurement Task Force for the New South Wales Government under Victor Dominello as well. And so today, talking about sovereign capability, it's something I've been passionate around for a long time now, but it seems like it's really come in vogue, certainly in the last few months. I'm seeing it everywhere at the moment. I wanted to bring the language together first because it's a pretty diverse area and there's a lot of concepts. So the first one that's been around for a long time is Australian made, the triangle with a kangaroo, which is really around goods being exported and creating a global brand for Australia. The next one is domestic capability. So domestic capability includes foreign investment. It's around economic activity within Australia, and it's probably the most broad concept that exists in the space. The next one is sovereign capability. So sovereign capability is a subset of that, and it looks predominantly at Australia's capabilities and Australian corporations' capabilities domestically within Australia. We then also have sovereign procurement, which was a term coined by Victor Dominello, which is kind of the New South Wales government's lens on this same issue. We then have data sovereignty, which is only tangentially attached to domestic capability and sovereign capability, which is really around privacy predominantly and where data resides in IT systems globally. We have Australian industry capability, or AIC, which is the Department of Defence's lens on this part of the world, all these concepts for us. We have the Indigenous procurement policy, which focuses on a very narrow subset of supporting for social reasons, domestic capability in Australia, but predominantly around, as I said, social reasons rather than production of goods or services. We have the new Buy Australia plan, which was launched by Albanese in the election commitment of March this year. That's probably now front and centre and the most significant development at the moment. The next one is the Future Made in Australia office, which is a commitment from the Albanese government of something that they will build within Department of Finance, which will effectively govern and try and uplift the capabilities of Australia. So as you can see, there's a lot going on in a lot of spaces here. And so sovereignty seems to be being used everywhere against everything at the moment. And so what does it mean in the IT sense? Well, there's really three categories. So you've got physical sovereignty, which looks at where the data or the systems reside. You've got operational sovereignty, who can access it. If you think about follow the sun models, it creates a lot of complexity around the jurisdictions that can access that information. And then legal sovereignty as well. What are the legal domicilities of that data and those organisations, and which laws are you subject to? And the real challenge for government around which laws are you subject to is when you're talking in a global context, it's not just today's laws that you need to take into account. You can't take back the sovereignty of your systems or data, so you're often then perpetually linked into those other countries' legal systems. And so those laws change over time, and so then governments have to consider the future laws of those jurisdictions and countries in which we operate. So to step back a bit, where are we as a nation in a very broad context? Australia is the 13th largest economy in the world. We're in the 90th percentile. I feel like in a lot of the discussions we have, we always think of ourselves as a minnow, and it's just factually not true from an economic perspective. But then where do we sit from a domestic capability in an IT sense? Well, we consistently rank pretty near the bottom of every report I've read. If you look at the OECD rankings, we've even hit bottom, but we're often second from bottom and nearly always in the bottom third. So there's obviously something dramatically missing here. We're one of the larger economies in the world, yet we don't seem to be able to build domestic capability. And in the government spend context, the AAAA states that only 8% of Australia's budgets for government go to domestic organisations for ICT. So it's pretty woeful if you compare it to other major economies around the world. And I don't really see a good reason for this to be the case. So Australia is well educated, geopolitically stable. We've got access to large pools of capital globally. It's not as good as it could be, but it's not terrible. And so I sort of think of us as if we were in a kitchen. We've got all the tools, we've got all the equipment, we've got all the ingredients, and we're just not cooking at the rate that we could and the capability that we could get to. So what can we do to fix this? And on those various task force and things I've been on and panels, when we've looked at it, we've nearly always concluded that the biggest and nearest lever is government spend, government procurement. It represents about a third of all of Australia's ITC spend. So the ability to move that needle quicker than other needles, and there's policy mechanisms in place to do that. So the great news, the inspiring news, the reason I have a brilliant outlook on life at the moment is if you look across the spectrum now, and I'll pick two examples, but on the right side of politics in the Liberal government in New South Wales, the Sovereign Procurement Task Force has put in sovereign procurement rules and put a very clear mandate to bureaucrats in the New South Wales government. And then you move to the left side of politics in federal government with the Albanese government and the Buy Australia plan, again with a very clear mandate. If any of you were at the Albanese speech on Tuesday night in Parliament, very, very passionate. You know, I've noticed he wasn't even reading from his paper. He just knew this stuff off by heart and deeply believes in it. So that's an amazing opportunity. We've got bipartisan political alignment at the top level saying what we need to do. So where is the next steps? What's the next thing we need to do? Well, it's now coming down to the secretaries, the CIOs, and the mid-level decision makers in government. And the sovereign procurement rules in New South Wales government were put into place a year ago, and so I'm still on that task force and working through that. And the cultural change and the risk-based decision making that people are making, it takes a long time to change. This will be, I'd like to think 1 or 2 years, but as I'm going through the journey, it's starting to feel like a 5 to 10 year journey. And so my call to action here is really, you know, if you're in this room, you're probably involved in some form of either making decisions or working with decision makers, and we need to think bigger about those procurement decisions. We need to think about what does each of those procurement mean to the sum total of the national security of Australia? What does it mean for the resilience of our organisation? What does it mean for our future economic growth? And so that's really my request for you, is as you work with people, as you deal with people in government, really put your foot forward and lean in and talk to them about the broader contexts of what these procurement decisions are meaning and what that's doing for Australia. And of course that translates then into an opportunity for innovation, because if you've got more production occurring within the Australian economy and less consumption, it forces a need for innovation, and it forces us to need to produce more innovative products and services and commercialise things for global export, and contributing to our Five Eyes and national and international partners as well. Thank you.